Hello and welcome to the LRM podcast, sponsored by Adrian Flux Insurance. I'm Martin Dominy.
And I'm Steve Miller.
And today we have a very special guest all the way from the United States, Will Hedrick. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me.
Not at all. Thank you for coming on. We're actually sat in a pub garden, so if there's any background noise, there's going to be background noise.
It's the pub. Actually, this is the first pub garden podcast.
No, it isn't. I did one with Ian.
Oh, right, of course. Ian's always in the pub. I wonder where Ian does any work, really.
He's out.
Ian's here.
Ian is actually here.
And so is Greg. It's sort of like a Friday afternoon get-together kind of catch-up / podcast. So, what a way to spend a Friday afternoon.
Yeah. And the sun's still shining.
It's beautiful.
It's
So,
yeah.
Will, we were just chatting, actually, and I said, stop, because we we're going to get the recorder rolling. You actually contributed to Land Rover Monthly about 20 years ago, you were saying.
Yeah, around 2006. It's actually, oddly, at the time when I had just sold the Land Rover that I had, and so I didn't have one at the moment. But I was also serving as president of the Carolina Rover Owners Club in North Carolina. And they wanted an article for the local U.S. edition, which they were doing too at the time, although I think it was more just they added some U.S. content to the existing U.K. edition. But yeah, I wrote an article. I think I did 2, maybe 3 overall. But yeah, one of my friends actually took and framed one of the articles I wrote. It's actually hanging in my garage at home.
Brilliant. There we go. We only just sort of, you knew, didn't you, Steve? But it was a bit before my time.
Yeah, you were too young to be reading magazines then.
I was reading.
Oh, no, you were reading
them. No, I
them.
was definitely reading them.
But yeah, I remember the covers because they always had like North American spec 90s on the front, if I remember rightly.
I can well believe it. And as we all know, the Americans know how to style Land Rovers. They are like nothing else you see anywhere, really. They're just absolutely just stunning to look at. But Will, talk to us a little bit about what have you got at the moment? What does your collection look like at the minute?
I'll go back since you brought up North American specs. My first Land Rover was a NAS 90, and it was a 94. It was actually one of the first 100 that came into the U.S. I didn't buy it new. I was a third owner, I think, that came out of New Mexico, and I flew from Raleigh, North Carolina, to Albuquerque, New Mexico, to meet the gentleman who had it. And this was back in the day when there was a website called LRX, or Land Rover Exchange. It was a U.S.-based like bulletin board, basically. Gentleman had posted this almost 100,000 mile NAS 90, which as a kid at the time, like I didn't have the money to go spend on a new one. But this one was like, in my price bracket. And fortunately for me, he had forgotten to include his telephone number. Oddly.
Published that straight in a magazine.
But being, technologically savvy, I was actually able to go on and find his phone number through the internet. Right. Called him and, hey, are you the gentleman with the Land Rover for sale? And he said, yeah. I said, I'm sending you money now. I'll be flying out next week. I look forward to meeting you. And sent him a deposit, flew out and met him, and then drove it back across the U.S. to North Carolina.
Wow, so cool! Jumping in at the deep end with the road test.
And then 2 weeks later, the transfer case let loose, and then I was indoctrinated. So at current, we have 3 Rovers at home. So I have Toby, my 200 TDI station wagon 90, and then have Clementine, which is my 2.8i 110, which was came from South Africa, but was a gift that was given to me by my clients from my big case, or it's what I refer to it as a big case from back in 2014, 2015. That's a whole long story.
We'll get into that in a second. Very, very interesting stuff.
And then the third we have is my wife's. She has a third gen Range Rover
L322.
322.
Yeah, it's 4 or 5. It's 4 or 5. Yeah, TD V6 or
there can't be any TD V6s in the States.
I've seen a picture of it. Yeah, it's an L405, isn't it?
Yeah. So I did the timing belt on it not that long ago. That was an experience. Not something for the faint of heart, and I don't think many people would take it on themselves. I'm glad I did it, but I took my time doing it. But it's challenging. But yeah, no, and that's I've owned, I don't know, probably a dozen over the years. We've had LR3, Discovery 3 for you all. I've owned several Disco 2s. I've owned a couple of NAS Defenders. But yeah, I'm pretty happy with the ones that I've got. Sorry, the tapping.
Oh no, that's all right. I was going to say,
Of editing in the
by the sounds of, I was going to say, by the sounds of it, doing a timing belt on a L405, you're not too afraid of getting your hands dirty.
No, not generally speaking. I mean, I'd also do both my daughters drives Jeeps.
So you've got to get your hands dirty then.
Yeah, and I also have an old Jeep that I'm restoring too, 1965.
Okay.
So and I'll maybe talk about that later. But Ian, he's given his ideas. But one of the ideas that I've come across that I didn't even know it existed until a few years ago was there was a potential collaboration that was to happen between Willie's Jeep and Land Rover back in '58, and the engineers at Rover built a prototype that had a Jeep CJ5 body, or what we now call a Jeep CJ5 body, on basically all Land Rover running gear and chassis.
Wow.
And there's a collection of photos that I think it came out of Andrew Barnard's estate, if I remember correctly. And they're fairly detailed to include like photos of the Jeep chassis and the Land Rover chassis next to each other. And I have in my mind that that's something that I might like doing with this Jeep.
That sounds amazing. It'd be really interesting to see some of that material. But quite timely as well, as there's talk of Defender being aimed more squarely at the US market.
Yeah, so the collaboration between them and Stellantis, it'll be interesting to see how that goes about. Tariffs have made things very interesting, if not difficult, in the last 2 years. And an ever-shifting issue that I've had to deal with quite a bit as an attorney.
I bet. So we'll get into the meat of it, shall we? How did this big case that you refer to, could you talk us through what that was all about? Because for those not necessarily au fait with the ins and outs of import and export of Defenders have been sort of coveted in the States for quite some time, but you can't ship them out from the UK until they're 25 years old. That's the bones of it. But you really had, the levels of detail that you had to, and the hoops you had to jump through to save basically a whole raft of Defenders from being crushed.
I mean, yeah, so it's an interesting story. I guess you have to go back. I've had a fascination with Land Rovers ever since I was a little boy, watching Wild Kingdom on television, and just, the first time I remember seeing a Defender, I was in high school. I had no idea where it had, other than on television, but where it had come from or whatnot. It was just when Land Rover started selling them in the States, and I decided at that time I had to have one. But again, it wasn't one of those things that it was in my budget at the time. So I kind of just kept doing my homework and research, and I had actually this crazy idea that I was going to find one wrecked and rebuild it. I never actually ended up doing that, but we did with my brother. I helped him find one, and we rebuilt it. I had worked for Land Rover for about 5 years, and after I left the company, I actually went back to law school. The time my wife and I were both seeking professional degrees, but we didn't want to do it both together. It didn't make sense, one of us, for both of us being in school at the same time. So she went to school. She's a physician assistant, works in the medical field, and then I went back to school and graduated from law school around 2011. Worked for a stint with the state of North Carolina, and while I was working for the state, this case came along. A gentleman who lived in the town where my family and I live owned a 110. I hadn't met him, but my brother had. And one day they ran into each other again, and it was right after the federal officers had come to his home and seized his Land Rover and taken it away.
Wow.
And he just gave my brother like just the basic idea what had happened. And my brother was like, well, hey, my brother Will is an attorney and he used to work for Land Rover. You should talk to him. As brothers do. So I at the time I again was working for the state, and there's all sorts of legal issues from my end as far as keeping compliant with our professional code of conduct. And so I said, yeah, I talked to him, but I wasn't really thinking about it at the time. But I met with a gentleman whose name is Darren, and after meeting with him, I realized that there was a significant issue with what the government had alleged about his truck. They had said that it was a 2000 model year 110, and that it had been imported much earlier than the 25 years in age that it would have been allowed to be imported under U.S. regulations. Generally speaking, the law is it has to be at least 25 years old, but that's only with regard to conforming to US DOT regulations.
Right.
There's a whole another set for EPA, and it's more nuanced than that. But at any rate, they claimed his was a 2000, but I looked at Darren's, and Darren's actually was an early 1983 truck. Like in presentation, the way it looked, I mean, there was nothing about it that was 2000, so they had misidentified it. And because of that, I told him, I want to help you, so I'm going to help. I'm going to do what I can to help you out. And I actually scheduled to go look at the truck with the Homeland Security team that was holding it at the time. And after looking at the truck, I said, yeah, they've definitely got this wrong. And I went home and slept on it that night. And I woke up the next morning and talked to my wife. And I said, I feel like if I'm going to help Darren, I should offer to help the other folks too. I was like, because in my mind, if they had been another Land Rover owner, whose vehicle had broken down on the side of the road, I would have stopped and helped. It's just the way I felt about it. And she's like, yeah, I think that's fine if that's what you want to do. And there's at the time there was a website called defendersource.com, or it was d90.com when I originally was a member, but there had been this whole discussion thread that had been started, when one of the other owners' vehicle had been taken away by Homeland Security. And I just went on and was like, look, I met with one of the owners. I'd like to help. I'm only extending this to this group of people, and that, if your truck is one that's been, cut.
So is this quite common? Was it quite common for the customs to be seizing these cars?
No, it was novel at that time. Though.
Right.
Like really, I mean, it's not the customs didn't, but not to this degree, because it was a massive one-day coordinated raid.
Oh, right. I see.
So there were some 50 trucks in total. There were two different cases. There was a civil case, which was actually a civil forfeiture. I won't get into all the legal behind that, but and there was a criminal case against an importer based in Wilmington, North Carolina. And this civil forfeiture case was going towards building that criminal case.
Right.
But all of the vehicles had come into Wilmington, North Carolina, and been sold from there. And from there, they'd gone, they were at every corner of the United States. I had clients that were in Washington State, California, Maine, Florida.
Wow.
And parts in between.
All sold through this one dealer?
All sold through that one importer. And the case was taking place in the Eastern District of North Carolina, which is where I was. And so basically everybody, I was able to coordinate. So long story short, at the time, I was a relatively new attorney, and my naive thinking was that, maybe like 4 or 5 of these folks would reach out to me and ask for help. It never occurred to me that they all would.
Right.
Which is what ended up happening. And I worked on that case. I'm going to say part-time, but it wasn't part-time. I was working full-time for the state of North Carolina, and they're working on this case in the evenings and nights. And it got to the point where I was going to work, coming home, staying up all night, working on this, going back to work the next morning, having not slept.
Whoa.
And then coming in, crashing out. And at a certain point, my wife intervened. She's like, you can't keep this up. She goes, I think that you need to just work on this case. She goes, I think you should leave your job with the state. And I didn't know how I felt about that at the time. And she said, I don't want you to worry about it. She goes, I think something good's going to come out of this.
Nothing beats an adventure in a Land Rover, and our sponsor, specialist insurance broker Adrian Flux, agrees. To support your journey into the great unknown, they offer Land Rover insurance on all types of models. With cover in the UK and Europe for off-roading and green laning, they're well equipped to handle even the most rugged landy escapades. Call them directly on 0344 728 0417 for a quote, or search Adrian Flux Land Rover Insurance for more information.
And just stay focused on that. And so that's what it did. And 6 months later, we went to a settlement conference with the government, and before a magistrate judge, and we basically came to agreement. The government relented, agreed to return all the vehicles, agreed to pay damages where vehicles had been damaged beyond a certain percentage. And all the vehicles were returned. So that was a year in total. And an attorney that I had clerked for when I was younger, when I was a law student, that is, he and I spoke after the fact, and he was amazed. That to me was a compliment. Like, he's like, the fact that I've been able to get it resolved in a year, because people don't, generally speaking, win cases against the government like that.
Right.
And so I was, I felt pretty good about it, but I was mostly good that, I'd done something right by the owners. What I didn't anticipate after that, which I go back to my wife, because she did, because after that my phone started ringing and it hasn't stopped. And so I went from that case on to other cases, and this is just now what I do. And it's, I have clients now that are, just individuals like yourselves, collectors with, larger collections. I have relationship with companies that do importing and exporting, and that do parts and vehicles and compliance. It's a long, winding road, but I love doing what I'm doing.
It's a whole world, isn't it? When you actually start looking into it, the movement of vehicles from, especially into the States, because it really did boom, didn't it? When they did become of an age where, especially the TDI engined vehicles became 25 years old, the demand for them really went up because they're so much more usable. And in fact, my white county station wagon I had a good few years, 10 plus years ago, ended up going to the States. But there's certain criteria they have to meet to be able to go in without an issue, regardless of whether they get snagged or not.
So it's funny you mentioned so that's how I met Ian. So Ian contacted me out of the blue, just around 2016, I think, and he was trying to track down what had been his father's old 110,
Right.
which was one of the vehicles that turned up in that case.
That's mad. The coincidence.
Small world.
Yeah.
And so, Ian and I, we just hit it off from there, and we've been friends ever since.
Did you find it?
Yes and no.
Oh, okay.
It's a longer story, and if he wants to tell it when he gets here, but yeah, that's a
different thing.
Yeah, for the record, Ian's gone back to the bar.
Yeah.
Which is a
Surprise.
no surprise there.
Yeah, so as far as, because you're not allowed a galvanized chassis, are you? And you're not allowed different engines and things like that, I seem to remember.
So the way so it's complicated. When it comes to the U.S. law, the law was originally written by Congress. So all it flows out of what's called the Motor Vehicle Safety Act of 1988. And it's a long history having to do with lobbying by manufacturers, not necessarily Land Rover, at least not in the research that I've done, but it was heavily lobbied by Mercedes at the time. And the idea was that, people could go buy a gray market car, what we call a gray market car.
Is that anything that isn't American?
It wasn't built to U.S. specs.
Okay, right.
And so U.S. specs meaning, conforming to what was in the U.S. DOT requirements, which are Federal Motor Vehicle Safety Standards, and then EPA requirements for emissions. And but you could go buy a vehicle at that time because you could basically import it as a gray market car. But the problem was that the manufacturers, such as Mercedes-Benz at the time, were spending more to upfit the factories, and their dealerships were paying more. And basically, these cars were competing directly with the cars that they were trying to sell.
I see.
And then there was a larger issue in that the U.S. dealers didn't know how to work on the cars that were designed for other markets, and chiefly being because most of the vehicles designed for the U.S. market are gasoline, and most of the other market cars are diesel. So somebody with a diesel car that had been imported would bring it to the Mercedes dealership thinking that they'd be able to work on it. They wouldn't. And ultimately what that would do is lead to a lot of negative complaints. And so it's classic, somebody who's happy with the product tells 5 people they're happy with it, but somebody who's unhappy with the product tells 20.
Definitely.
And so it was hurting them, reputation wise. And they decided that, if they wanted to do what they could to stop it. And so that put in that place that law. But the House Means and Ways Committee at the time left a provision in to exempt vehicles that were over 25 years old as antique and classics. And so that's where this all came in. So where we fast forward to 2014 at the time, or actually slightly earlier than that for the vehicles that were imported, but basically that the government alleged that those vehicles were imported earlier than their 25th birthday. So when it comes back to like galvanized chassis, what was happening was there were importers that were taking older vehicles, over 25-year-old vehicles, but then putting basically new vehicles on those VIN numbers.
Got you.
We would call it a VIN swap. You may call it being cut and shut.
Ringers.
Ringers, yeah.
Yeah.
And
See, I remember back in the same time that was happening, I remember going to see a client at the time who was basically buying up old 25-year-old Land Rovers that were basically rotten or past their best, shall we say, and then buying brand new Land Rovers and essentially doing a VIN swap and chassis number swap and then putting like bespoke interiors in them.
Yeah.
That company ceased trading many years ago, but there was a number of them and they couldn't build them fast enough because the thirst for the American export, because at that time people, the importers or whatever, people on the state side hadn't cottoned on to what is and what isn't an old car.
so the issue with galvanized chassis is, again, everything in the law, can be answered with the word depends. It depends. So where galvanized chassis is concerned, what the U.S. Customs officers learned at the time was that the people who were doing that were oftentimes disguising a newer chassis by galvanizing it.
Yeah, that's exactly what they were doing. They were all galvanizing the brand new chassis.
Because the galvanizing would obscure the vehicle's original VIN number and other markings, and that they then just jumped to the conclusion that if it had a galvanized chassis, it wasn't original.
Yeah.
But that's only true insofar as it concerns, certain vehicles that were built by Land Rover, because they didn't use standard non-galvanized chassis in all markets. So such as in South Africa, they were built by a company called Associated Automotive Distributors, AAD. And they when they got their chassis packs in for their CKD kits, they sent them down the road to Cape Galvanizing and they galvanized them.
Okay.
Same thing in Australia, where they shipped for like the Parenti vehicles.
Yeah, of course.
Those are all on galvanized chassis, all factory built, but just in those markets. Whereas Solihull didn't use that practice.
They certainly didn't.
They barely used paints back then. Yeah. Oh, okay. Greg, forgot you were here. How was the engineering process back in the day? Don't bother painting that one. That'll be okay.
Yeah. So it's so kind of explaining some of these nuances, and it's a lot of what I do now, because there is still a lot of confusion out there about what's original and what's not. And so when I get called to be brought in and, assist a client with the, seizure by U.S. Customs, I mean, it typically takes me about 3 hours to do a vehicle inspection. So I'm top to bottom, front to back, looking for all of the vehicle's serial numbers to, verify that is this a factory built Land Rover? Does it have all the components? And you'd be surprised how many vehicles I've come across which, every single component matches. Like it's the one that rolled off the assembly line with.
Wow.
So I spent a lot of time at the Motor Museum and talking with people with Land Rover's archives, and it's an interesting job. I like the hunt. I enjoy the hunt part of it. Chasing stuff down. And I mean, I've run across some interesting vehicles in my time. Sometimes you'll have an oddball vehicle where it doesn't. The U.S. Customs will get some report back from Land Rover that a vehicle doesn't match its original build specifications, but they don't go any further than to look at the original build record. And I had a client once whose vehicle was a 5-door as it arrived in States, but it had been built as a 3-door.
Oh, right.
Well, and not looking at the vehicle's records, or not looking at it properly, they overlooked the fact that the vehicles was first dispatched to Carmichael and Sons.
Right. Okay.
And it had, the body had been removed and it had been rebuilt as a fire tender with a 5-door body. Because it needed that commercial chassis fitment. And yeah, so that's, once I showed that, okay, well, it's fine then,
Yeah.
But the onus is on the owner to prove all of this. And so this is where most people fall short, is they don't do their homework in advance,
Yeah, sure.
So it's, if somebody's looking at importing a vehicle or wanting to sell a vehicle to the US, it pays to do your homework and make sure that the vehicle is original as best you can. There are certain exceptions, but that's when it gets really nuanced and you have to look at it specific instances. But
So what's the state of play now then with the thirst for it? So the demand in America for Land Rovers, has it gone up, down? Is it settled a bit?
it's in fluctuation constantly. It always
Okay.
has been. So the market for us, excuse me, at least in my view, it's seasonal. So it fluctuates between seasons. So right now is like a peak part of the season. So
Okay.
vehicles there's usually more on the market, but there's also a higher price threshold versus in the wintertime. So because for us, they're more lifestyle vehicles, not, necessarily something that everybody's going to be driving or using it in a utilitarian way on a farm or anything like that. So people aren't looking for them in the wintertime. So you'll see some on the market, but they just don't sell quite as well. The industry as a whole, I think, has taken a hit in the last few years. But the pandemic played a part in that, but the tariffs have had a major impact on it. And I have some clients who've just simply gone out of business.
Wow.
Okay.
So it's had a negative impact in that regard. As far as supply, I mean, I think a lot of people over here have caught on to the American market. So the prices here now aren't that much different than what people would pay for them in the States. There's kind of a correlation. So you've seen the demand level off a bit from where it was. I mean, it used to be really high, low supply, high demand. There's more supply now, and I don't know if that is directly attributable to that, but I just haven't seen as many vehicles moving across. And candidly, the people who've come to me, and I have a gentleman that I told Ian about who's looking for a Caterham right now. I'm just urging people where I can, to hold off, because it's a roll of the dice at this point as whether you're going to have trouble or whether you're not.
Wow.
Getting through U.S. Customs and the amount of tariffs that you'll have to pay. Because again, most recently, earlier this year, all the tariffs that were in place last year, they got ruled unconstitutional. And so they've had to roll all that back. So people who imported it now have to go seeking refunds from the government for the unconstitutional tariffs they were required to pay.
The one thing that I was told years ago was that the American market doesn't mind right-hand drive, which surprised me because I thought most people would, the minute it landed, swap it all to left-hand drive.
That's subjective. I'd say that it matters on the whole. I don't think that most Americans are afraid to drive right-hand drive, but where you really see the differences in the dollar that they command, left-hand drive vehicles are worth more.
Okay.
Than right-hand drive. People still buy right-hand drives, but it's more working if towards a budget, I would say, or just or if the intent is to buy right-hand drive and then once it's in the States, then convert it to a left-hand drive.
Sure.
So you'll see that. So it's another thing that's not necessarily well known is that the requirement that the vehicle be original is applicable insofar as it's when the vehicle arrives into the port in the U.S. Once it's through and allowed entry into the U.S., then any of its repairs, et cetera, falls more or less to state law insofar as that's applicable. So, for instance, there are certain states in the U.S. where chassis changes are acceptable, and there are certain where it's not. And I've actually had clients whose vehicles have been seized and destroyed by state governments because they didn't comply with the rules for the states that were applicable at the time. This isn't like in most states, but there are certain states where that's been a problem, like the state of Ohio, for instance.
Right.
They don't recognize chassis changes that have been done outside the state of Ohio.
Wow. You see.
It's really complicated, isn't it?
Yeah, I can see how you made this your full-time job.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
and enjoy it by the sounds of it as well. A thrill of the chase and
if you told me, what I've been doing this 20 years or close to 20 or 15 years, whatever, however long I've been, if you told me that I would be doing this the full time, I would have thought you were crazy. I never thought that there would be enough demand for it, but no, I was wrong. And so that's, but the good thing is it allows me to work from a home office, and I have kids who are still in grade school, and so I've been able to be there for them. And like I said, my wife works in medicine, so she stays pretty busy.
Yeah. So you're finding it outside of Land Rover then? Are you finding anything else that the Americans have a demand for from the UK in terms of a specific car type? I'm just,
It's a great question. It varies. I mean, and again, it's somewhat cyclical. Like I actually found, and Ian and I have talked about this quite a bit, is that the flow goes both ways. So there's times at which there's a demand for American cars over here, and you'll see like Mustangs. I think, for instance, at one point in time were quite popular.
Well, when they didn't make the right-hand drive UK one, definitely, yeah.
I was quite surprised because, like, when I look at Facebook Marketplace, as you do. One of the first things that popped up when I arrived was an F-250 dually.
Really?
What happens, Will, is when you put your location to my house and I put my location to your house, and we just sit on Marketplace looking at each other's
because everyone wants what they can't have.
Absolutely.
Or what's
no, but this was
not easily obtainable.
F-250 dually here, a diesel, and I mean, I wouldn't imagine that a V10 would
completely useless on our roads.
I mentioned
fit down. I mean, I grew up in Devon. You would not get one F-250 dually down those Devon
When
lanes.
one goes to Nathan's school, we follow it down lanes, and I mean, he is the sole cause of the potholes getting wider on the road. Shadow of doubt, but you just watch a little bit more chip away as he goes over them. But
I would say that right now, as a whole, the automotive industry in the U.S. is just down.
Similar to the UK then, really.
I mean, just heavily impacted by the tariffs. I mean, I think a lot of people were just, there's a lot of uncertainty in the marketplace, and they don't want to go out and spend the money. Again, that's just my read of the situation.
Yeah, I mean, that's probably fair.
Different markets, but I mean, I haven't had as many people contacted me wanting to, evaluations for people. That's Adrian.
Oh,
there you go.
yeah.
A gentleman has just turned up in a rally spec Range Rover Classic, which is very cool.
Finding the right parts for your Land Rover or Range Rover shouldn't be an off-road challenge. At bmh4x4.com, we've built a smarter way to get you back on track. Our new website is now live, the simple, fast and reliable way to find the parts and accessories you need. Supplying quality parts for Defender 1983 to 2016, Discovery 1, 2, 3 and 4, Range Rover Sport 2005 to 2013 with Range Rover P38A and L322 coming soon. All parts are backed by expert knowledge, quick delivery and a 2-year quality guarantee. Visit bmh4x4.com, built by enthusiasts for enthusiasts.
We're back. We've been admiring a very, very cool rally-prepared Range Rover in the car park next to Ian's completely standard Range Rover, and it's quite a fun juxtaposition.
Here's a question.
Go on
Which
then.
one would you want to drive home?
Ian's.
Really?
Yeah.
I was want to go in the other one.
Would you?
Yeah.
I mean, that one would be more fun, but comfy. Well, they all smell the same as well, don't they? It doesn't matter what they've been used for. They all smell the same.
Yeah.
Absolutely great stuff. But let's rewind a little bit, Will. You mentioned your first NAS 90. Which was the first Land Rover you had. Apart from the transfer box expiring, what was your experience like with that vehicle? And I guess you don't own it now.
No, I secretly stalk it, like as you do with all your first loves.
Exit.
We're talking about Land Rovers, aren't we? Yeah.
So I know where it is. I've not reached out to the owner, but there's that hope that one day maybe I'd end up getting it back. But it was a sad day when I sold it. We were my wife and I were expecting our first child at the time, and wasn't baby friendly. At least the U.S. version wasn't. Strangely, ended up getting another 90 to replace it, but one with automatic transmission that my wife could drive. And so, but no, but still, all of my former Land Rovers, it's the only one that I would love to have back.
Right. Okay.
I mean, we have a lot of adventures. I have a lot of photos of that truck, a lot of smiles, a lot of miles. Take it to a lot of, different events. But, one of my managers back when I worked for Land Rover, he said, "Well, you fall in love with every Land Rover you see." And I think that's true. I've developed relationships with a lot of these cars. And to me, I've expressed to people, over the years when I talked about them, because I meet a lot of first time Land Rover owners, and, they want to know what the experience is like. I was like, "Well, do you have a dog?" And, you either say yes or no. And I was like, "Well, if you don't," I said, "you have to understand, or if they do, even that, you have to give your dog attention, right? You have to pet it, you have to play with it, you have to take it outside for exercise, you have to take it to the vet, to get checkups, you have to give it medication, heartworm, all these things, everything that goes into it." And I said, all the things that you do with your dog, you have to do with a Land Rover. And I said, just like your dog, if you don't do these things and you don't take care of it, it'll lift its leg on your furniture to let you know that it's being neglected. And so, that's the way I look at it, is that you develop a relationship with the vehicle. And if you take care of it, it'll take care of you. And not everybody takes care of theirs. I think there's an investment in owning a Land Rover. And it's, mine. I hope one day that I'll pass it down to my kids and so forth. But I mean, who knows? You never know where they're going to end up.
Are they into it, your kids?
I think my son is. I mean, my daughter Taylor enjoys automobiles quite a lot. I don't know that. I mean, they've seen the amount of time I've spent underneath them. So, I think that maybe that is a deterrent effect time, but they love going out. They love talking about them. They get quite a lot of questions, what's that your dad's driving, that kind of stuff. So, it's, I don't know that they're set on the same path that I am, but we're all individuals. They're heading down their path. I think my son Weston might be, I don't know. He has the option, if he wants to drive Toby, he can do that when he gets his license. But he's told me that he wants an orange Jeep. So that's the way things are trending right now.
There's still hope to save him. I mean, hopefully we can steer him onto the righteous path of the green oval. But that's interesting. So the club scene in the States is massive, isn't it? We were just having a chat over in the car park there when we were admiring the Range Rovers.
Yeah, I've been keeping up with my friends who are out at the national rally, the U.S. National Rally, which is ongoing in Ouray, Colorado right now. And they've actually just this morning, or actually I guess late yesterday, they had some major storms move through. There's been a number of wildfires out in that area, and I think they've been dealing right now with mudslides and whatnot. I was reading, actually, one of my friends posted that they had to do a recovery for a stricken discovery in Silverton, Colorado, and they're based in Ouray for the rally. It's normally, and I've been out to Ouray a few times, but it's normally about a 25 mile drive between the two, but the road is closed because of mudslides, and so it's a 200-mile drive around. They had to do that in order to get to where this individual was broken down.
Wow. And you complained about that road closure near my house earlier, Steve.
It was 15 whole minutes.
200-mile diesel.
And I was still on time. So, yeah, I can imagine that.
Yeah,
but at the same time, I'm wishing that I was there, that I could be there with them. I mean, obviously, I'm happy to be here with y'all and with my family. It's been a little while since the last time I was out there. It's a beautiful part of the country. And yeah, I mean, the clubs are involved. Arizona Land Rover Club, my local club, Old North State Land Rover Society. They get Rove in Virginia. We have clubs that go back decades, and everybody I've met involved in all these clubs, they're all good people. I mean, and I'm sorry for the ones that I'm not listing, but y'all know who you are. Yeah, I mean, it's, the most amazing thing about Land Rover ownership that I found isn't necessarily the vehicles. It's the people that I've met along the way and continue to meet, as I move forward. It's really, I've met a lot of good people, a lot of different backgrounds and experience from all walks of life, every end of the economic spectrum. And I've never met a person who wasn't willing to, to stop and help you if you needed help. It's it's been really good, good for me. And, it's happy to be doing it now as a living.
Oh, yeah, I bet. I mean, I completely agree with your sentiments about what Land Rover people are like. I don't think there's another car scene, another brand that offers the same amount of friendliness, hospitality, and welcoming that Land Rover people seem to just emanate. It's really, really, really great.
All over the world. I mean, not just the States or here in the UK, but I mean, you talk about you driving anywhere. I mean, at least that's been my experience that, it's a talking point. People share different interests, but it's always easy to come up and talk. My brother, who's been overlanding in Africa before, it's easy to link up with people who are also driving Land Rovers and travel together, and he's done that as well too. So it's they're just really remarkable vehicles.
Absolutely, yeah, it's really great. You mentioned you had one over here for a while. Do you still have your Defender in the UK?
I do. Toby, the yellow Land Rover. So Toby's a member of the family now. I had entertained the possibility of passing him on to the next owner last year, but was quickly put to shame for even having the thought. No, he's actually sitting on wheel dollies at home waiting for a new clutch to go in. I have all the parts to do it, but I've had other intervening projects that haven't let me get to it yet. And that's the truth, Ian.
Yeah.
Yeah, Ian's in no position to talk about clutches, to be fair.
You did.
Or for the record,
Blackbird about.
or for the record, sensible driving
There you go, an
footwear.
apology on the podcast.
Yeah.
Mike.
Mike, I do generally apologise for what I've done to your workshop today. That's the less of that. But I mean, I think one thing about your yellow Land Rover is obviously we dropped it down to the port, and we didn't MOT it, but obviously we'd looked after it. But you then proceeded to pick it up from the port and just drive it home.
Yeah, my daughter Caroline and I, so I went and picked it up at the port in Jacksonville, Florida. We were on vacation holiday in Florida with my wife's family, which is something we do most years. And I knew that we were going to be, I just timed it appropriately. And then Caroline and I, when it was time to head home, we hopped in it. And instead of taking the interstate all the way back, we took back roads the majority of the way.
And how far was that?
What? It was more than 500 miles. I don't remember exactly how much it was, but
That's a brave move on a Land Rover that you've just bought. I thoroughly.
He hadn't just...
No.
Oh, I beg your pardon.
No.
Just shipped it.
Yeah, no, because you
Just
had it over here for 5
So this was late in the pandemic. So it got put away in storage. My last trip over, actually, my wife and I, we came over like 2 months before the pandemic hit. We went up to the Lake District with Ian and Greg and their families, and then they just got put away because we weren't able to travel. And so just decided that I wasn't going to be coming back over, at least in the foreseeable future. So we called up a friend, Paul, to say, hey, could you drop it down to the port? And actually that fell off once. We actually had to end up rescheduling it. I can't remember what happened at the time, but yeah, just had him shipped home. But yeah, we had a great time at the Peak District before we left.
Where he booked a hotel from hell.
Yeah, no, okay. Right, let's stop picking on you now. I suggested we sit in a pub in the sunshine. It's easy. But no, because do you have it in 5 years? We drive around it for 5 years.
Bought 16 or 17, I can't remember, 2016 or 2017, one of those years. And then yeah, I mean, so this would have been 2022. Was that, I think it was the year we shipped him back. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, he was my runabout. I was over here 3 or 4 times a year for business. And yeah, I mean, I at that point I didn't have any intention of shipping him back. It's just, when the pandemic hit, that's really when things changed, and I just didn't want to leave him. So he's been enjoying the easy life in North Carolina. Although he's done a couple of trips, he's been to a couple of different ports with me for work as well too. Some people maybe in the States may be surprised to hear that, but yeah, I do take my Land Rover to work too.
Good stuff. Yeah, it's important that they get good run out now and again, and well, as much as possible, really. I think it's easy for them to, like you say, get them in storage and then don't necessarily get out and use them as much as that. But how do you find the actual scene in the US with regards to Land Rover? The enthusiasm is obviously there. The clubs are there. Is it are they welcoming to all types of Land Rover?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, there's a couple of different groups that do events, and there have been more recent events that have been popping up here and there, which are just get-togethers. Basically, they're not necessarily off-roading, but just standing around and chatting with folks who also have Land Rovers. I know some folks who have been doing that. I'm actually wearing a shirt for one of them today.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
So, but it's a good community. That's been my experience, and yeah, I don't know that I can really add much more to that than that.
No, fair enough. So, any Land Rovers out there over here or in the States that you really aspire to own one day?
Oh wow. To be honest, I'm pretty content with the ones that I have. I'm always chasing some in the back of my mind, but like some of those, the ones that they're the kind of rare ones, and I don't generally talk about them for fear that somebody else would try and go out and find it.
Oh, fair enough. Yeah, keep it on the wraps. Yeah, that's a good plan. But I suppose it's difficult to top a NAS 90 when you've had one of them as your first Land Rover. It's quite difficult to.
I mean, that's a lot of people's dream Land Rover in the UK, isn't it? I mean, everyone would want that, I think. What colour was yours?
Portofino red.
Oh,
Right, yeah.
beautiful.
Yeah, yellow is the one I would tick the box on.
See, I really like the green and the white.
I like them all, to be fair.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't turn anywhere back.
My youngest brother had an AA yellow one that I actually ended up buying from. So three of my brothers, my younger brothers, that we all had Defenders. So I was the first. My brother Matt, we bought a NAS 90 for him that had been wrecked, and we rebuilt it. And then my youngest brother got one. They didn't have to go through what I went through when I bought mine, but
But they're getting rare on parts now over there. They are proper collector's pieces now, aren't they? And they're not mainstream.
I would actually say that the availability of parts has gone up in recent history due to the demand. I think that, at least from what I'm seeing, JLR seems to be supplying more, or at least they're having more suppliers come in that are making them available. There's also companies, Rovers North, that's going out and they're just getting parts made for themselves. So like for the longest time, you couldn't get a reproduction North American 90 spec roll cage for a soft top, and Rovers North is now offering one that they've done as a reproduction.
Yeah. I'm not sure if Exmoor Trim do one like that as well. Maybe
possibly a similar style.
Yeah, similar style to
when you're in the nitty gritty. I know Mud UK have done some NAS spec stuff like these speaker pods
in the rear, yeah,
door trims as well, which is really cool. So there's obviously demand there to put them into production.
So one of the things I've thought about doing my 110, because you asked me about if there's any Defender that I like to have. I already own the Defender that I would like to have, but I don't necessarily know that it's equipped the way that I want it to be equipped. But when I first got it, the idea was there was a shop in Maine that kind of pioneered what they called their Beach Runner, but is basically a 5-door 110 soft top. And I quite like that a lot, and I have ever since I've seen it. So there was this idea in the back of my mind that at some point in time I would convert Clementine, my 110, to a 5-door soft top.
I can definitely see the appeal, and yeah, I know exactly what you mean. The full-length soft top, split doors, 5-door beach runner type cruiser, really cool.
I remember when I was doing my V8 110 a few years ago, I kept going to East Coast Defenders website, and there was an Eastern Green 110 soft top on there, and I was kind of modelling the look on that. I just couldn't stop looking at it. It's just amazing. Like, I don't know what it is about the States, but they seem to have an eye for like a less is more approach to, like, when you see British cars over there, like MGs and Triumphs, and is it the tyres? What is it?
The style and the detail that the Americans seem to have for Land Rovers is like nothing.
A friend of mine, actually, he did that concept art. Sorry, a friend of ours, Adrian, over here, but he did that model on a picture and he created the image. And then ECR, he had contacted them about building it. He never came through with the project for them to build it, so they decided to build it on their own, and that's And it was basically like a NAS 90, but a 110 instead.
Yeah, you take the family, because the 90s have jump seats in the back, don't they, which look fun.
But everything in the US, like, so that had to be designed differently. So like the the North American spec 90 has to have a forward-facing folding seat, more like a Jeep,
Yeah.
with 3-point harness seatbelt. The wagons had the traditional jump seats in the back, but all of them had to have the roll cages, the rollover safety protection, and that was to meet the Federal Motor Vehicle Safety Standards requirements that were, in effect at the time, and still are.
It's probably a good thing that they didn't start putting like the impact bumpers on them.
Yeah.
They did on like MGBs and things like that for the American market, because that would have, can you imagine what that would have looked like?
Well, the only concession was the big pad in the steering wheel that first got applied to NAS, and that actually ended up going on to other Defenders, because obviously if you look at a later Defender,
Oh, of course.
pad in the
Yeah.
yeah, that's the only concession that happened.
Right. Okay. That's interesting. I didn't think of it like that. That's what
So you have a bit of NAS 90 in your
Yeah.
late Defender.
Oh yeah. I suppose you would. Yeah. Nice.
There was, this is not common knowledge, but there was discussion amongst the higher ups at Land Rover at the time, Land Rover North America, that is, about whether Defender sales could continue in the U.S. past 1997. They were ending, obviously, because the requirement that all vehicles have to have OBD2 and airbags.
Right.
But that requirement was only for passenger vehicles and not for heavy duty vehicles. And so there had been an entertainment of the idea at one point in time that they could continue to sell Defender as a 130 in the U.S. because it was a true 1-ton rated vehicle, but the plan never came through. There were Defenders that were sold to the U.S., but in limited capacity, the most famous of which was a group of Defenders that were sold to Busch Gardens that were TD5 automatic Defender 147s that were used as like a safari theme park ride.
Right.
I don't know what's become of those vehicles. They ceased doing that ride a number of years ago, and then they had the vehicles kind of tucked away somewhere back on the back lot at Busch Gardens in Tampa, and then one day they just disappeared. So I don't know if they were sold or if they were destroyed.
Be cool to track them down or find out. That would be it's like a bit of history, isn't it? TD5s in the States
with automatic transmissions.
with an automatic. Wow.
If anyone can find them, Will can.
Yeah, he's the man for this job.
I mean, it's interesting, like the rare stuff you run across. I mean, you wouldn't think about it. My brother Matt, he's owned a few actually Camel Trophy Defenders. That's something he's been more involved with, and yeah, I mean, there's quite a few NAS 90s that are even over here in the UK. I actually helped facilitate getting one for Nick Dimbleby's photo shoot when they did the V8 launch for new Defender.
Okay.
Back, so if you recall, there was a white NAS 90. Yeah, so I helped link those up. Yeah, it's a long story.
Right. Good stuff. We were actually chatting to a fella at Fest, weren't we? That's got a NAS 90 over here.
Oh yeah, we did, didn't we?
Yeah. It was very interesting. Friend of yours, Greg.
Yeah, James.
Yeah, really nice guy.
Oh yeah, James is a really good guy.
They do get about, don't they? These Defenders. They hop the pond in both.
Yeah, I know
directions.
2 people with a NAS now. Well, I don't know that chap, but met him. But I know somebody else with one.
I've actually probably at least a dozen, maybe more NAS Defenders that are over here in some capacity.
Really, that many?
Yeah.
Wow.
There was one just recently that was being offered for sale. It was over in the Netherlands.
Crikey. Yeah,
Yeah.
they do.
There was one not that long ago that was being sold in Cyprus. I mean, there were a fair number that were built, but not shipped to the U.S. They were either prototypes or marketing vehicles or whatnot. Actually, I did a referral to Greg for a client who did an inspection for the vehicle that was sent to Land Rover, France, and it was used at Val d'Isere in I can't remember what year it was.
97.
Yeah,
97.
So it was in the marketing photos at the time, it was actually depicted as a like a Dakar type, rally vehicle, but it was.
But that was near a delivery mileage.
NAS
90.
But I mean, it was a full original NAS. Yeah, so it's interesting stuff.
Serious amounts of history of these things, isn't there? It's just so much to uncover. Of course, something we try and strive hard to do in the pages of Land Rover Monthly. Gary Pusey absolutely nails it. But yeah, well,
Actually, there's one other vehicle I'll tell you that I am fascinated with, the early stage one or actually stage two prototypes. So this was like the early. So I mentioned like before we started recording that like having an early 1970s Land Rover that correlates with when I was born, but I didn't I wasn't aware that there were earlier prototypes out there that were based on 110. I wouldn't mind having one of those.
that would be cool. Yeah, definitely. You say it was 78. You said that someone said to something about.
Yeah,
Flying
78, 79. So there were some earlier than that. So they started with the 100s that they were looking at for the French and Swiss armies. And
Oh, then, yeah.
Yeah.
Dunsfold have them, do they?
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah.
Yeah. Talking of which, you're off there tomorrow.
at 9 in the morning.
Have you been there before to the museum?
Not to the museum. I went to the field meet they did, it's been just 10 years ago.
Probably.
Yeah. It's a long story about how I met Greg. The second time I met Greg was there, actually. But first time I met Greg was at Classic when Classic just opened.
Yeah.
You'll have an amazing time at the museum. It's fantastic.
It's high time we went down there again. 'Cause
Definitely.
we went for the launch day, didn't we?
Yeah.
And we need to go back down there.
You
Have they changed the exhibits since then?
Oh yeah, no, I mean,
Yeah.
Phil and the team change things around a lot. So I mean, each open day they do, there's new things for people to see. So it's even if you've been before, it's absolutely worth going again.
Yeah,
So-
well, definitely, because you don't see things. You see things at a different time you didn't notice last time.
Well, and Dunsfold is charity, so you supporting me charity.
Of course.
It's worth doing.
Yeah.
No, it's a really, really great place, and you will need as much time as you can squeeze into looking around it. There's so much to see.
I'm just glad that Phil and his family had the foresight to do it all. I mean, because otherwise it'd be cast to the wind. There's no telling where these vehicles would have turned up.
Yeah, absolutely. They're doing the work. It's such an operation as well. It's as you'll see, it's. I would encourage anyone who hasn't already been to go to the Dunsfold Museum and become a supporter if you can, because it as far as a Land Rover destination goes in the UK, it's up there, isn't it? It's
Yeah,
got to be.
definitely.
Really, really amazing. So
It's a Land Rover bucket list destination.
yes, absolutely.
You must go.
Yeah. So don't miss out on that. But Will, thank you ever so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me. It's been great.
It's been lovely to meet you and to have a chat and see what you find, get your background and get your take on how things are in the Land Rover world. So no, we really appreciate your time, and no doubt we'll see you again soon.
Absolutely.
Cheers, guys. Will, once again, thank you very much, and we'll see you next week.
Bye for now.